Welcome to another episode of How Did You Get Here, the podcast that explains exactly how successful, inspirational people got to where they are today. Today we're talking to the inspirational and incredible 3 times Paralympic swimmer and gold medalist and practicing paramedic, Jenny Coughlin. Jenny, thank you for coming on the show and welcome. How did you get here? Talk us through your career and how it started and how you got into swimming as a sport.
So it probably started when I was about 3 or 4. I was on holiday in Florida and I took my armbands off and jumped in a 16-foot pool.
Wow.
So my mum then realised she had to take me to swimming lessons. So I started out, ducklings and really small, and then that grew to club swimming, then squad swimming, and then I had a detached retina at 15, or maybe 16, and that it meant I lost my central vision in my left eye,
right.
And also some of my right eye was affected and had to be operated on, and then my mum was worried about my training because there was an awful lot of people in the lanes at the squad. So she spoke to British Blind Sport, who advised that there was an upcoming competition in Wolverhampton. So I swam at that and broke world and European records, and then was invited to get classified officially in Germany, in Berlin. And race at that event, which was the qualifier to get to Sydney.
Wow, that's incredible. That must have been kind of a bit of a whirlwind at that age. So how old were you exactly when you got into the GB team?
I was 16.
16. So was that quite overwhelming then at the age of 16 to kind of go through all of that so quickly? Was it overwhelming with the responsibility that came with?
I think I just cracked on, really. And it was overwhelming, but I was 16 and it was all new and it was all exciting. I remember my kit being delivered to my mum's house. It was a massive box, and I was at school at the time. And my mum was like, "I'm really sorry, but I've got to open it. I can't wait for you." I remember being absolutely gutted that it was my mum that opened all my GP kit first.
Oh, no.
But she was so excited and so proud. So I can forgive her. And it was at the time where the tracksuit was the Union Jack flag.
Nice.
So I'd always wanted that tracksuit.
Yeah.
So it was amazing.
Yeah, that's amazing. That is incredible, to be honest. Like, have you still got the tracksuit?
Yeah, I've got a wardrobe absolutely stuffed full of kit. I've kept absolutely everything. Yeah. And sometimes we'll dig out kind of, for Tokyo, we digged out some tops and, decorated the sofa with a flag. We will dig it out every now and again, and I'll look at the size of the swimming costumes and think, how did I do that?
So because is it true? Because is it true about the kit? Like sometimes you can only wear it like once. You can only wear it kind of once for every competition, and then if you're sponsored, they give you other kit to wear. Is that right? Were they quite strict with you on that in terms of only wearing the costume once and then you have to wear a brand new one the next time around?
It wasn't so much you could wear it once. It was, if you had the same sponsor, you could wear it again. But if at another competition there was a different sponsor, they'd make you, if you had kind of trainers with a different make on, they'd make you, tape the make off.
Wow.
There was a lot of us with Olympic rings tattoos, and that's not allowed at the Paralympics, so we have to tape or marker over that. They were very strict about what you could wear.
Right. Wow. That's definitely an insight. That's cool. So what about the medals? That's what I wanted to ask you.
I keep my medals in a sock. It's not just a normal sock, it is a nice fluffy sock.
Okay.
But yeah, it's just to keep them all together really, so I know where they are.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd like to get them framed and, you know, but I do have a photograph with me, like a professional photograph, in my tracksuit with my medals.
Brilliant.
But yeah, I just do keep my medals in a sock. A bit like Tom Daly with his little knitted pouch for his medal.
Love it. Is that to kind of protect them, stop them from getting scratched and that sort of thing?
Yeah. And just so I don't misplace them.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome. So in terms of the training, obviously as a swimmer, like I've heard that it's kind of the most grueling type of training there is really in the sports world. So talk me through that in terms of what that training regime was like, and you know, what was it like for a 16-year-old to have to stick to those strict regimes? What was it like?
I do find it hard to motivate myself with, you know, my ADHD does affect that.
Yeah.
But my coach Billy Pye, he kept me very motivated.
Yeah.
And I would swim in the morning, do some gym after it, then go to university, study in the afternoon, and then come back and go training for another 2 hours of a night. So yeah, we have to do a lot of meters. Yeah. Even though our actual races are quite short. Yeah. They call it garbage yardage.
Is that just to kind of build up your stamina and your strength?
Yeah.
And is there certain foods that you're not allowed to eat as well, kind of dietary requirements that they make you stick to and things like that?
Yeah. It's always important to, you know, make sure you're eating the right things. Yeah. It's hard when you get to a Paralympics because there's a McDonald's in the village. So there is a rule that we can't go to McDonald's till after we've finished racing.
Right. Got ya.
But yeah, we did eat a lot of pasta.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, putting in the carbs just so that you've got the energy. Yeah, I know, 100%. So who's your inspiration then? Who was your inspiration growing up in terms of, you know, giving you that drive, and kind of who did you aspire to be? Was it a swimmer? Was it somebody in the sports industry?
So when I started my swimming career, Sarah Story was my roommate. Nice. And she was a couple of years older than me. Yeah. And I looked up to her an awful lot. You know, she still has, you know, she's still competing, but her drive and her confidence in herself and her determination, I really just wanted to be like Sarah. Yeah. But yeah, it was good having a friend that, you know, we trained together for a little while as well. Wow. And yeah, awesome. It was good to have her. And my mum also inspired me quite a lot. She had quite a lot of health issues, and the way she overcame them. Yeah. And the way she just always believed in me, kind of kept me motivated.
That's incredible. That's brilliant. So talk to me about the moment you arrived at Sydney and you were kind of, when you got there, I can imagine kind of you getting in. How does that work? And do you go straight to the pool to start training, or how does it happen? Talk me through it.
So we would probably have a bit of a sleep because it's quite it's a very long flight. Yeah. And then we would go to the pool. You get a chance to kind of look around the pool, and then you'd get in to do kind of a light session and kind of shake off the jet lag. Yeah. But I just remember seeing all the seats on the side and how far they went up, and I remember going to the top, right to the top of the stands, and looking down and thinking, this can't be full. This is so many people. Yeah. And it was very overwhelming. You know, I was only 16. I'd been to kind of nationals before, an able-bodied event, but that was the biggest competition I'd ever been to.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was quite overwhelming.
Wow.
To start off with.
Yeah. Because I mean, Sheffield Pond Forge, for those listeners that are obviously familiar with that swimming pool, that's massive. Mm-hmm. That's a pretty big pool, right?
Yeah.
So Sydney was like
even bigger.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. And the Aussies went all out.
Yeah.
Yeah. Definitely all out. You know, Men Down Under was played all the time. But yeah, the Aussies were such a great host. It was an amazing games.
So tell me about the moment that talk me through the actual race itself. So obviously you're standing behind the blocks. Mm-hmm. So talk me through what's going through your head. What do you go through? Is that because you see when you watch obviously the like 100 meters running races, you can see that they're psyching themselves up. They have like little routines they do. Like what is that the same for you as a Paralympian swimmer?
In the call room, kind of where you sit before you walk out behind the blocks, there's a lot of kind of psyching, other people trying to psych, other swimmers out.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
There was a lot of kind of punching lockers and, having the hoods up and having sunglasses on. And, oh, yeah, it was crazy. Sydney, I was kind of probably too young and too naive to realise. I just was so nervous.
Yeah.
But yeah, I remember in Beijing, I had Rhiannon Henry next to me, who was also swimming in my classification.
Yeah.
We were just looking at each other, like shaking our heads at, these Canadians going absolutely crazy in the call room, thinking, what are they doing? But it does all change when you stand behind the blocks. I guess Sydney, I was so nervous. I was unbelievably nervous.
Yeah.
And then Athens, I was a bit less nervous.
Yeah.
And Beijing, I got the hang of things. I knew how things worked. I knew, what to do in my own mind to keep myself calm.
Yeah.
And I just knew, what I wanted my end goal to be. So, I definitely progressed behind the blocks. I remember Sydney, I'd, wave at the camera and be all, try and be happy.
Yeah.
But yeah, there was none of that in Beijing. I was like, right, I'm just going to go in and race and enjoy it.
100%. Mm-hmm. Wow. And how, because obviously there's like certain stages up until, the race, mm-hmm. where, it's whether you win or you don't. Mm-hmm. What was that like? And then obviously, how did that feel in terms of you finishing that race and when you realised that you'd won? Talk me through that, the emotion that must have been going through you and so on.
So it was World Championships in Argentina. We had 2 visually impaired relays, and it was brilliant because you got to race with your friends, and to be part of that team and enjoy the win together. I can't remember who finished last, but I remember we broke the world record, and someone took a picture of us on the podium, and we all looked so proud, and that was amazing. But my individual event was 100 back, and I won silver, and it wasn't really expected. You always go in to try and do your best and do a PB, uh-huh. But I really cherish that World Championship silver medal because it was brilliant.
That's incredible. Wow, what a career. Has there ever been a time where during the swimming time, and you training constantly, did you ever feel like giving up at any point?
There was, it was a January, I think the year before Beijing, and I had lost my funding because I hadn't got the times for lottery funding, and everyone was on a training camp in Australia, and I had to walk to the pool for morning training and afternoon training, and it was raining and it was cold and it was early, and I just thought, well, why am I doing this? I was working in Reflex in the 80s bar, wearing a tutu and, dancing to Ghostbusters just to get some money together. So yeah, I'd go to work, and then my other half would pick me up, I'd have a kip in the car, and then we'd go training. But yeah, it was that January, walking to the pool and thinking, everyone's in Australia, I've got to go and do this session by myself. Yeah, it was hard work.
Yeah, I can imagine not having your team there,
Yeah.
and you having to kind of really focus.
Yeah.
So how did you overcome that, and what life hack would you give to listeners in terms of if they're ever feeling like giving up, and how would you stay focused, and how did you stay focused and driven?
I guess because I always had an end goal, I always had something to kind of focus on. I also think as my career went on, I became better at managing my emotions and, my mindset and my mental health, just as much as, training physically. It was really important to, see the psychologist every now and again if you were feeling a bit down. And I think that side really improved in British swimming and Paralympics GB. Swimmers can get help. And I guess always realising that near the end of my career that there was kind of things that I could transfer, qualities of myself that I could transfer from swimming, onto another career.
Yeah.
And believing that I could, put that out there to employers, really.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's amazing. Yeah, I know. I mean, I can imagine there's probably a hell of a lot of pressure when you're at that level, to perform and to succeed and to win, and the level of training that you've mentioned that you're having to do. I can imagine that sometimes it gets a lot, and like you said, there's a lot of mental training that you're having to do as well as physical.
Yeah.
But yeah, so taking that, and then when did it hit you that you were like, right, I've done what I want to do now, where do I go from here? When do you think that was in your career?
So I don't think very many people thought I'd get the qualifying time for Beijing because I've been off funding the year before.
Yeah.
And when I did it in the first trials. Me and Billy were expecting it to be in the second trials, and yeah, when I did it in the first trials, it was kind of like, wow, I can't believe I've just done that. But I kind of knew that would be my last games, because it had been such hard work to get there.
Yeah.
Plus, I wasn't old, but I was old for a swimmer. And yeah, the performance director said, I don't think you'll get the qualifying time for for London, sorry.
Yeah.
And he was right, because there wasn't my event wasn't actually in London.
Yeah.
So yeah, he asked, did I want to officially retire? And I was like, no. I was kind of in and out, and I couldn't decide. I actually got a tattoo which said let it be, which actually meant just let my swimming career be. Just leave it. Just get on with the rest of your life and see what comes of it. I'd already done a theology degree. I thought it was really important to keep up my education while I was training, because if anything went wrong, if I was injured, you know, I'd need that to fall back on.
Definitely. And
I think when you're young, you go into the sport and you think, yeah, I can do this forever, and it's just not the case. So then I did a teacher training course in RE. Didn't like it. And then I don't really know how I thought, oh, I'm going to be a paramedic. I think I just applied to lots of universities thinking I won't hear back from them. And then I got a couple of interviews. I had a really good interview at Sheffield Hallam. And then got the letter and said, you know, you're on the course. Brilliant. So it was a bit of a shock, really, because I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I'd kind of lost my identity a bit, because I was always known as Jenny the swimmer. And when that's gone, you do kind of think, what am I now? And there is such a thing as post-games blues as well. You know, it's been hyped up for 4 years, and then it's done, and then that's it. Then you've got to train again for another 4 years. So, I always knew that Beijing was, you know, probably going to be my last games. So that's why I made sure I took absolutely everything in. I took so many pictures, and just enjoyed it. Just went out there for a PB rather than a medal.
And do you miss it? Do you miss it now? Do you still reminisce now?
I miss my teammates, and I miss having them around all the time. I do still speak to a lot of them. But there are certain things that I miss. But there are certain things that I don't miss.
Well, obviously, you know, that team would have been your almost like a family.
It was.
It's an extended family. You're around them all the time. Training.
I was around them more than my own family.
And so what are the things that you don't miss? Early morning training?
Well, probably early morning training, but I used to do, you know, 6:30 till 6:30 shifts, so it was still quite early. But I guess getting up and then having to throw yourself into a freezing cold pool, don't really miss that.
I can imagine that not being very nice. So the pools have to be cold, don't they, to train in, right? Because it's unhealthy to train in a hot pool, isn't it?
And also at competitions they have to be at a certain temperature, and they're usually really cold then, but there's some scientific evidence that, you know, it's a faster pool if it's a certain temperature. And I do believe certain pools are faster than others. Whether it's all, you know, in my head, and I don't know, but they are always quite cold.
No, I've heard it before in terms of faster pools than others, and people getting personal bests in certain pools because it's a faster pool. For the listeners at home, they're probably thinking, a faster pool? It's a pool.
I know.
They're the same length. But no, I get it, 100%. So just in terms of your at that point, so you've then decided that that's it. You've called it a day, and you're then thinking about, you know, you're then at Sheffield Uni, and you're then thinking about the career path that you're wanting to go into. So what made you choose to be a paramedic?
I think once I'd realised, you know, the swimming was over, I did do a few other sports. I tried cycling for a bit, but I was on the back of a tandem, and you have to really trust the person on the front of the tandem. Then I tried goalball and realised if this big, massive, heavy ball with a bell in it hit me on the head, it wasn't good. You know, I could detach my retina again.
Yeah.
So I thought, no, I can't do that. And I think that side of things has improved. You know, when I finished, you got 3 months funding, and then that was it.
Yeah.
There was kind of no real transition support. But I believe that has changed now, which, you know, is really good. I wish I'd have had that kind of transition advice.
Yeah.
But I think caring for my mum made me think about going into that kind of career.
Right.
Yeah. I always thought I couldn't be a nurse because I couldn't answer to a doctor. And I liked the thought of kind of being out and about, and also the swimming at competitions creates an awful lot of adrenaline.
Yeah.
And when that finishes, it's really hard, and it's really hard to get it back because, you know, that was such a high. But I think I have picked one of the only jobs that you can still get that adrenaline rush.
Yeah.
When you go into a job, or when, you know, you know what's coming, and, you know, you've got to
like perform and react.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can. It's what you said. It reminds me a little bit of when somebody comes out of the military,
Yeah.
and they're in that constant fight or flight mode.
Yeah.
And because obviously they've got that constant adrenaline rush,
Yeah.
and then it's finding it really hard to kind of adjust to civilian life.
Definitely.
So yeah, I can see what you mean in terms of, you know, you're constantly either racing or training or thinking about that next race.
Yeah.
And so you're constantly ready to go.
Yeah.
It's an addictive feeling, right?
Definitely. Yeah.
So yeah, okay. I can get why you've gone into that career now.
Yeah.
And yeah, how's that going for you? How long have you been a paramedic now?
So it's been 8 years now. I've been qualified for. The first few years, you know, I was still really nervous and, you know, constantly learning. I don't think you ever finish learning as a paramedic. I think, you know, paramedics that think they know everything, you know, it's wrong. You've just got to, everything that new that comes along, you've got to keep up your kind of professional development.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's been 8 years now. I've worked in various places. Currently work for a private ambulance company. Work 4 12-hour shifts and then have 4 12-hour shifts off.
So for the people watching, obviously a lot of people that be watching this podcast might be thinking about changing their career or going into something new. What advice would you give them in terms of how they transition from maybe one career into another?
I think just firstly to say that you're never too old to kind of change careers. You know, I only qualified as a paramedic when I was 30. Yeah. I think if you're not happy in your job, that's the majority of your life. And, you know, if you do want to change careers, always remember that you have your transferable skills, and to put yourself out there, really, you know.
Yeah.
Be positive and be confident in what you want to do.
Brill. Yeah, I mean, if there was anything that you could change about the career path you've taken, kind of from your swimming career all the way through to where you are now, is there anything that you would do differently, maybe?
I don't think so. You know, my swimming career was absolutely amazing. I got to travel all around the world. I got to, you know, see different things. I would have never had that experience if I hadn't, had that detached retina. My mum was absolutely devastated when I lost the sight in my eye.
Yeah.
And I was like, look, I get to do these amazing things because, you spoke to these people. I guess in my paramedic career, I would try and... I still think there's quite a big gap in the ambulance service and, the health sector in general about taking on people with disabilities, with learning disabilities, physical disabilities, visual impairments. I do still think there's a big gap in training for the ambulance service,
Yeah.
I think they should really utilise, the disabled people and involve them more. And I really do wish that I'd, maybe put myself out there sooner and said, I think this should happen. And I kind of thought, I'll put my head down, I'll get on with it. But, it is important that disabled people have a voice and,
definitely,
speak out about what's wrong in their workplace and what they think that can change. So that's the only thing really I think I would change.
Nice. And obviously for yourself, you've, as someone that's with somebody that's got a disability, how have you found those challenges from your swimming days to life at home to then working as a paramedic now? How have you found the best way of dealing with those challenges? What have those challenges been and how have you dealt with them? Because I'm sure there are listeners that have got disabilities that and they might be struggling with a certain path that they're going through. What advice would you give and based on your experience?
For me personally, when I was training, to take as an example, cannulating. So cannulating someone's vein to, give them drugs.
Yeah.
I would, because of my eyesight, because of my dyspraxia, I'm not very good at kind of fine motor movements. So I would put tape on the back of a sick ball and I would practice cannulating over and over again until I got it.
Yeah.
And I still do it now. If I haven't put a cannula in for a while, I'll have a go because I know that I'll lose that skill if I don't keep practicing. So I just found kind of little things to get round, round challenges. When I did nights, I could never see where I was going, so I'd always have a little torch with me. Things like the paperwork's always really small, so I'd have my magnifier with me.
Yeah.
And sadly, I have found that not just the ambulance service, but other companies that I've worked for as well I've asked for that help and that help hasn't been there.
Yeah.
And I've had to leave the company because I wasn't getting the help that I needed.
Yeah.
Which is a shame. I really
Absolutely.
think companies should book up their ideas, really.
Yeah. So you think there should definitely be more of a drive for those companies, bigger companies, to kind of put more effort into making sure that every member of staff is catered to, and supported.
Exactly.
Yeah, 100%. I agree.
There's a tick on a health questionnaire that says, do you need any extra help? And I've ticked it, other people have ticked it, and not heard anything back, which is a shame.
Yeah. Hopefully, if they're watching this podcast, they'll realise and they'll get it fixed.
I hope so.
So yeah, fingers crossed.
Yeah.
So have you got any other words of wisdom for the listeners at home, just in terms of, and that's for anybody that's kind of venturing into a new career, or they have a disability themselves and they're thinking about becoming a Paralympian, whether that's a swimmer or any other sport? Have you got any kind of key words of wisdom?
I think if anyone's struggling with the classification system, I know it is quite complicated. Swimmers go from the physical disabilities at S1 to S10, and then there is S14, which is for intellectual disabilities, and then the visual impairments are S11, which is completely blind, S12, and then I'm an S13. But if anyone wants to look at that, my former teammate Giles Long has created something called Lexi, which is LEXI, and that's really helpful in letting people know about all the classification and the classification system, because it is quite complicated, and it's a really good tool. I think when I was younger, as a 16-year-old, my motto was, "Don't let your fear stand in the way of your dreams."
Yeah.
I think as I've got older, that's changed a little bit.
Yeah.
But I guess just always look after your head. If you're going into, being a paramedic, it's really important to, look after your mental health, because it can be difficult and you can see difficult things. And there used to be kind of an ethos of you're not a good paramedic if you suffer with mental health, and that's changed a lot, and people are speaking out more. But yeah, I think just put yourself out there, and believe in yourself, really.
Amazing. Well, it's been absolutely incredible having you on the show, so thank you very much for coming along. And if you've been watching this on YouTube, don't forget to like and subscribe, and you can follow us on Oxbridge Home on any of our social media channels. Hope you've enjoyed the show. It's been amazing having you on, so thank you very much.
Thank you.
And don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.